Officiating today's services will be Rabbi David Flinkenstein from the Chabad of Wilmette.
I'd like to begin with the Jewish tradition of rending a garment. And that's a tradition that one does at a time of grief, a time of mourning. We realize that God is the ultimate judge, and when we have such a loss, first of all, there is an irreparable tear in our garment of life, in the fabric of our family. And we also acknowledge that there's a body and a soul, whereas our garments are really the external part of who we are, yet they give us our identity of how we express ourselves. The same is true of the loss of a life. The soul continues, but the body and the soul go their separate ways, and we acknowledge that by making a tear in a garment. Okay, so to make the bracha together, please stand up for a moment. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Now tear. Yeah,
Share it a little more.
Yeah. Strong tie. Dear friends and family members, as we gather here today to pay tribute to Norman Finkel, Nachum Daniel ben Yehuda Leib, the Hudis, we remember the words of King Solomon, the wisest of all men, who encapsulates all the traditions of mourning in just 4 simple words. V'achai yiten el libo, and the living shall take to heart. A funeral is never a time which is convenient, scheduled, but it takes priority. It's a sober moment when we put everything else on hold. We stop running, we put our life on pause. It's a time of reflection where we appreciate the value, the sanctity, the significance of life in general, and today, to pay tribute and learn from the amazing life of Norman Finkel. Norman loved physics. Modern physics taught us that nothing truly disappears. Matter is just another form of energy, and energy into matter. If that applies to the physical, how much more so when we're talking about life itself, the soul, which is by definition spiritual. We wish the grieving family nechama to be comforted. True comfort is not just with the passage of time, that time heals all wounds, but when there's a paradigm shift. And that paradigm shift begins now. In English, what we're experiencing now is a funeral. In Hebrew, it's levaya. While the two are interchangeable, that's what's used for funeral in Hebrew is levaya, but the two meanings are totally opposite. Funeral comes from the French la fin. La fin is the end. It's the end. The final hurrah, the final event. In Hebrew, levaya means to escort. There's a continuation. It's not the end. The soul never dies. The soul continues to live. And we escort that soul. And therefore the paradigm shift is, while Norman Finkel lived amongst us,
Norman will have to now continue to live within us. V'acha yiten el libo, and the living shall take to heart. Therefore, begin by reflecting upon values, life events from Norman, values that we can internalize, that we can bring into our own lives. I'd like to begin by asking for forgiveness, mechila. It's customary to ask for forgiveness at this time. If in any way we wronged Norman during his lifetime, that we ask for forgiveness at this moment. In addition, it is impossible to encapsulate such a life in just a few moments. So we ask for forgiveness. And to begin the reflections, I'd like to call upon 3 family members, the dear wife, Bonnie Smith Finkel, followed by the dear son, Paul Finkel, and then by Robbie Cantor.
Thank you all for coming this morning to be with us as we say goodbyes or give our goodbyes to our dear friend, husband, father, great-grandfather, and last but not least, business partner and associate. Norman was a man of many directions. He could be kind and comforting, or he could be ruthless and demanding. For me, he provided a safety net. When things were not going as I had planned, he was there. He was there to advise what steps I should take or what steps I should have considered. Norman and I met on a blind date at the Four Seasons Hotel in the bar. After a few drinks, he asked me if I'd like to have dinner and proceeded to take me to the Four Seasons dining room. I asked, "Don't you need to have a reservation to come here?" He said not to worry, he had one. He had made a reservation thinking that if the evening went well, we would have dinner together. After dinner, we talked about dessert and agreed to split something. Imagine our surprise when the waiter brought us this large platter, all decorated with "Happy First Anniversary." I told him that we had to send it back, and he said, "No, let's eat it." And we did. I guess that was the beginning of our relationship. We always agreed on where to go for Chinese food. The problem was what to order. Both of us grew up on the West Side, and in those days, times were not always easy. He worked summers in a paint factory, lifting heavy 50-gallon paint cans on 4 pallets high. He was strong and determined to survive. Here is a story he liked to tell, and there are many, but I'm sure many of you may have heard this one before. I want to tell it for him. One last time. There was this moment when he was in the service. His whole unit was ordered to do 25 push-ups. After they had completed and returned to attention, Norman muttered under his breath, "What a chicken shit outfit this is." Within seconds, he heard, "Finkel, do another 25. Of course, he got down, muscles aching, and did another 25. After he had finished, the officer in charge walked up to him and asked, "How many push-ups could you do?" And for once, Norman was silent. He was a loving husband and generous to a fault with his family. He was successful, stubborn, and smart, and always had a story to tell. I'm gonna miss you.
My father, Norman, lived an extraordinary life. In particular, he cherished and valued the relationships he developed over his 93 years. Those relationships began with the special one he had with his mother, my Grandma Ann. In fact, he credited much of his success from the unconditional love that he always felt that he received from her. He also felt that his immortality would not come from material possessions, but through his children and his children's children. He was fortunate to enjoy having both. My father and I experienced a lot of life together. Many great concerts, Bears and Bulls games, and even took the Concorde to Paris. But really, the special relationship we had was grounded in the times we spent just being with each other. His marriage to my mom lasted 40 years. They deeply loved each other and shared that love with Robbie and me. I loved my father, he loved me, and I'll miss you forever.
I know this may sound trite, but my dad experienced a life well lived. He was a precocious child who skipped at least one whole grade. By 21, he had graduated second in his law class. He served proudly in the Army Judge Advocate General Corps during the Korean War. After his Army service, he married my mom, his first great love. After his much talked about stint at the Security and Exchange Commission, he came back to Chicago and started his own law practice. He loved his partner Bob Martwick and his colleague Jerry Ingersoll and all of his friends and clients. He raised me to believe that there was only one profession for me, and that was as a lawyer, and I complied. After my mom died, he never thought he would have another love like her. Well, my dad brought me a sister and a great friend in Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie, for becoming my dad's second great love. Through everything, we all knew that he loved us. He felt so lucky to have his children, son-in-law, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. I would like to thank Ricky, Monique, and Michael for taking such good care of my dad. We know you loved him and treated him like family. I hope you will indulge me for a minute and listen to me talk a bit about my mom. When she died 31 years ago, I was not strong enough to speak at her funeral. She was my role model and my friend, and one of the kindest people I knew. She loved PJ and me unconditionally. Mom, I wish you were here to know your adult grandchildren and great-grandchildren, but I tell them about you every chance I get. Dad, I love you. I hope you are with Mom and Papa Cal and all your friends and loved ones who went before you. I will try my best to keep your memory alive for as long as I live.
had the privilege of knowing Norm for over 30 years. He was a friend, a supporter. He was a presence, a force, a thinker, a man of sharp wit, strong conviction, and as we all know, of even stronger character. We all know his sayings. He loved his stories and his sayings. He collected them. He repeated them. He lived by them, and he added his own twist. He would tell me, Rabbi, you know what a long-term investment is? A short-term investment gone bad. Some people would say things like, don't throw good money after bad, but that's not how Norm would say it. Norm had his own way of saying it. Don't slaughter healthy chickens to make chicken soup for the sick chickens. And he would tell me, Rabbi, you don't have to teach me and preach to me, especially about the hereafter. I know about the hereafter. Every time I walk into a room, I ask myself, what am I here after? That was Norm. So today, in your honor, Norm, I'll share a very special saying, an adage, one that we shared together, the one that comes from the Talmud. It's about who, what, when. It's a teaching from Hillel, one of the great sages of the Talmud. And Hillel asked, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? I believe that Norm's life is encapsulated by that adage. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? Norm was not one who depended upon others. He was not a burden upon others. He understood the quality of personal strength. He was determined, principled, and never backed down when he knew he was doing something right. He shared with me that as a young boy, he was in the Talmud Torah in the Hebrew school of Bnei Reuven. As you can imagine, he didn't always follow the rules. And he admitted to me that he was thrown out of Hebrew school more than once. But his Jewish identity and what it was about was something he stood tall. He stood tall about his Jewish identity. He once shared with me that during one of those Hebrew school times, his class went to visit. There was a very special visit from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1944. And he had the privilege of being there. Those few days that Lubavitcher Rebbe came to Chicago. That memory had a lasting impression. He told me that the identity that he was able to forge as a young child was one that allowed him to stand up for who he was. Back in that day, it was also difficult being a Jewish kid in public school. And he was bullied around. But they made a mistake of bullying around with Norman. And he, together with his brother and his other friends, they started a club. They started a group. It wasn't the Mossad, but it was somewhat something like that. He stood up. He stood up for being a Jew. His next line, if I am only for myself, then what am I? Not who am I, what am I? If I only focus on myself, then what do I amount to? And this was his life's quest. He never lived for himself. He loved his family deeply, his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. He didn't just love them and spend time with them, he was incredibly generous. And he supported their causes, their passions, their dreams. Among his many charities, remember he would share that he supported the school that Jordy Ross and Elisa went to, Salman Schechter Jewish Day School. He was so proud of that. He was so proud of the kindness, the chesed projects that he observed in the Jewish Day School in Salman Schechter. And he was a proud supporter of that. Over 30 years ago, when his dear children, Robbie and Craig, became founding members of Chabad of Wilmette, back in our basement, Norm was there. Not just with encouragement, but he was there with commitment. And in his memory, in memory of his late wife, Maxine, of blessed memory, he gave an extremely generous gift to found Chabad of Wilmette, to allow us to go from the basement to have a presence in a storefront. I'll never forget the first time I spoke to him. He'd never met me before. And it was a phone call. I called him and I said, "How can I thank you, Norman? This incredible, generous gift." And I'll never forget what he said. "Don't thank me for something I'm supposed to be doing." That was Norman. He believed in planting, in building, and building a legacy. He may not have believed that long-term investments were in securities, but long-term investments were in relationships and in lasting values and the things that he built, the values that he built. He would say, "I planted an acorn and look at the oak tree that came from it." And the final quote, "If not now, when?" This he embodied, the precious gift of time and not wasting time, making the most of time. As everyone knows, up until 2 years ago, he was still in the office. If I wanted to catch him, I would catch him in the office, call him in the office, send something in the office. He was always there because his whole life was focused on achieving, contributing, improving. It was based upon a higher purpose. He never wasted time. He tried to make the most of his time and make time count. He once shared with me that a local deli wanted to honor him. And they told him, "We're honoring you, Norm. We have a sandwich named after you." So I would like to conclude. Let's not remember Norman by a sandwich. Although that would be great. There will be such a Norman sandwich. But let's remember, the one who actually invented the sandwich. Norm, you left trivia. Here's the last bit of trivia. Who was the first sandwich maker? The first recorded sandwich maker is Hillel. We mention him at the Seder, the Hillel sandwich. Let's live by Hillel sandwich. The sandwich, the Hillel statement we live by today. If we can internalize that quote, the quote that Norm lived by, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?" Who, what, when? Let's internalize this. We certainly know that they will be internalized by his dear wife, Bonnie, by his dear children, Robbie, Craig, and Paul, his dear grandchildren, Jordan and Melissa, Ross and fiancée Grace, Elisa and Brian, and great-grandchildren, Grace, Anna, Miles, and Ben, and all of us here who were blessed to have Norman in our lives. Let's conclude. Let us all recite together Psalm 23. I'll recite it first in Hebrew, then we can recite it together in English, which is in your folder. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai roi leyachzar, b'noizdesha yarbitzeni al memenuches inahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magle tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz hamoves lo irora ki ato imodi. Shivtocha mishantecha heimo yinachamoni. Ta'aroich lefonai shulchan neged tzoreroi, dishantav Hashem eloishi koisi revoya, ach tov v'chesed yidefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti beveis Adonai le'orech yomim. Together in English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now recite Kel Mole Rachamim. Please rise. El Mole Rachamim Sheichem Ireimim Hamsimenucha Necheino Al Kanfei Ashchina V'maleis Kedei Shemetahirim Kizerer Ki Amazhirim Es Nishmas Nacham Daniel Ben Yehuda Leib V'Hudis Shehol Achlei Lomoi Ba'avur Sha'anachnu Mispalelim Ba'ad Askaras Nishmosoi Began Nedim Tehei Menuchosei Lochem Balarachem Yastir B'Knei B'Seisa Knof of Leilomim V'Yitzrer B'Tzerachayim Es Nishmosoi Adonai Hu Nachalosoi V'Yanuach B'Sholom Mishkovoi V'Noimar Amen. Please join me together at the bottom of your folders. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Norman D. Finkel, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may he repose be peace. Amen.
Friends, this concludes the services here in the chapel. The interment and burial services will continue on the grounds of the cemetery. And as we leave the space here, you can either take the elevator or there are stairs that will bring you up to the main level. And then I believe we can probably just walk to the grave. If not, you can certainly feel free to drive as well. The family will be together for Shiva at the Cantor residence at 9018 Keeler Avenue in Skokie. They'll be together as they return from the cemetery until 3 p.m. today. The family has also requested that any memorial contributions in his memory to the Friends of the Israeli Defense Force, and that information is available on the service folder that you should have received when you came into the chapel. If you did not receive it, we do have those for you as you leave. And for those of you joining us online, that information about the memorial contributions is available on our website. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers: Craig, Jordan, Melissa, Elisa, Brian, and Zach Smith. At this time, I would ask the pallbearers to please come forward to my right, and I'll invite everyone else to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket, the pallbearers, the rabbi, and the family from the chapel. Thank you.